That was Chemical Dysfunction from the CD All Life's Losers with the song Love's Empty Promise. And our guest tonight is Frank Cronogue, who actually is Chemical Dysfunction, sort of operating under that name. Frank, why choose a nom de plume instead of just putting this out under your own name?
I was never particularly comfortable having my name splattered across a cover, or indeed on the album itself. There's no real distinct photograph of me on there. There's a kind of arty kind of photo on the back, which is kind of distorted in black and white with my hand across, kind of in a blurry way.
Right.
I just wanted to, apart from, having to appear as a front man singing in gigs, which I hope to do soon to promote this, that side of it, that's different to me. You have to represent yourself that way. But I just wanted to tell these stories and not be too at the forefront, with my face splashed across the cover and my name across it. It just didn't sit right with me, really. So the name originally was Tiny Triumphs. That's the name I used to use. And the more I heard it going around in my head, the more I disliked it. So I went through all different kinds of name changes and settled upon Chemical Dysfunction because it just sounded kind of slightly off kilter, really. And songs are about emotions from of the mind and things like that, really. And it just seemed to kind of fit that mood that was in the album as well. So it kind of stuck like that, really.
How would you categorize the music?
That's a tricky one. That's one I've never been able to really explain. But there's obviously influences there, as there is with everything, really. You draw upon things that you like listening to, and there's various styles on there. So you've got like blues and electronica, and kind of old style rock and roll, and various things like that. And it was the kind of stuff that I was brought up with listening to. So it seeps in, it seeps into the songs, whether it's subconsciously or not. It's inevitable that happens, and that's the best way I can describe it, really.
Well, I think listeners should know, in the interest of full disclosure, that they know that I'm a big David Lynch and Twin Peaks fan. And
that's right.
You are as well. In fact, you went so far as to collaborate with Kimmy Robertson a little while ago, who played Lucy on Twin Peaks. Tell us a little bit about how that all came together.
Oh, now that's yeah. Thanks for bringing that up. That was we recorded that about 18 months ago. I think it was quite a while back now, and it was a set of kind of like coincidences or happy accidents, I'd like to call them, really, that kind of fell into place. But to cut a long story short, I befriended her on Facebook, and we got talking, and I just listening to to sort of chatting to her and on there, and having her voice in my head all the time, or rather, as I her speaking in Twin Peaks.
Sure.
Then I found out later on that she still speaks that way after 20 years.
Right.
Her voice is no different. It's still very high-pitched. And this kind of idea popped in my head as I was sort of, talking with her and that. And I thought, well, I had this idea, and it was just going round and round and round and nagging at me. And I thought, I've got to do something with this. So I had these words. They weren't really like lyrics. They weren't rhyming or any kind of made much sense on paper, but they were kind of like random thoughts, really, more than lyrics. And I jotted these things down. And then I thought that Timmy's voice saying those lines. And I just bit the bullet and messaged her and said, "Look, Timmy, would you mind doing this project?" And I explained in depth what I was trying to do with it and what was required. And she said, yeah. And it was as easy as that. And but the way we did it was a bit kind of strange because of distances where I live in London, she lives in LA.
Right.
So the only way we could do it, recorder-wise, was a little bit guerrilla-like, if you will. It was done through Skype. So I recorded her voice. I was talking to her on screen on Skype, and we spoke and we rehearsed. And I sat with everything rigged up to a 16-track in my flat and recorded her vocal isolated. And I built the song around what she was saying. And I had this sort of a rough recording of the song, and I played it to her. I played it back to her as she was on Skype, and she thought, I dig this, it's quite good, this. And then I recorded the vocals separately and then kind of timed it and mixed it in the studio properly and got it cleaned up. And that's what happened. It came out as an EP, a 3-track EP. I did the other 2 songs on there. And that's the rest is history, as they say.
There's more to you than just music, and listeners are hearing this and saying, boy, Frank has such a nice voice. I could see him hosting some kind of a chat show, and you do, in a way. Yeah, it's a strange world, your podcast. Tell us a little bit about that. That's been going now on and off when I get the time, really. It's not I'm not too prolific with it, with the amount I get, I kind of get out on a regular basis. It's kind of as and when I can get to do them, really. And also when I can get guests kind of lined up for it, because it's logistically very difficult to do, because most people I speak to tend to be scattered around the States or places like that. So, right.
and you've got the time differences, which can be a headache, So
yeah.
Getting people at the same day and the same time is often quite difficult, and it has to be quite planned out quite far ahead sometimes, So they can be difficult to put together, but I love doing them, and I started doing them, it was around about November 2011, I think it was. And they kind of picked up momentum during 2012 and so on, as I got more confident doing it. I mean, the first few were quite shaky. I was getting used to the technology and interviewing technique, which I've never really done before up to that point. But I love doing them, and they're not always about, I do touch upon David Lynch and his work fairly often on them, but I kind of diverted and did other things on them as well, like concentrating on music and interviewing musicians locally and kind of helping them,
right.
Things like that. So it's become a little bit more varied than it was at the beginning, but I still go back to doing some Lynch stuff. In fact, I've got two podcasts coming up where I'm talking about his 2 black and white films, Eraserhead and The Elephant Man.
Right.
And I've got a couple of guests coming in to chat with me about that, so I'm looking forward to that very much.
Well, you've got your music, you've got your podcast. You're a Renaissance man, Frank. That's what it comes down to.
I wouldn't go that far.
Well, we heard...
It's a nice thought.
Where before we go into another track, because we're going to go into Black Dog, but tell us where can people get this CD? Or now, downloads, I guess.
Yeah, it's available for download, and you can get it on iTunes. I couldn't tell you the long link, but if you search for Chemical Dysfunction, and the album title is All Life's Losers, and you should find it fairly easily on there. The same thing with a site called Bandcamp,
mm-hmm.
and I think that's http://bandcamp.com/Chemical Dysfunction, all one word. And it's just for your listeners only, because no one else is, the world isn't listening to this. I can keep this quiet. They can get a discount on Bandcamp, but don't tell iTunes that. Okay, that's just for your listeners.
Right. Yeah, no one will ever hear this in the New York metropolitan area.
That's right. Yeah. It'll be our secret.
Right.
Yeah.
All right. Well, very cool, Frank. We're going to go into Black Dog, and thanks for being on the show. And everybody, check out Chemical Dysfunction.